Welcome back, history enthusiast. Today we're diving into a topic that's as fascinating as it is misunderstood: mysterious lives of ancient Japan. Geographical isolation and cultural evolution. The narrative of ancient Japan's development is inextricably linked to its geographical solitude, a state of splendid isolation that fostered a civilization unlike any other. The seas that stretched between Japan and the Korean peninsula served as both a moat and a medium, a barrier that insulated the archipelago and a conduit through which a distinct cultural identity could be nurtured and refined. This isolation was not merely a physical phenomenon, but a crucible for the evolution of a society that would come to embody a unique synthesis of indigenous innovation and selective foreign influence. In the beginning, the Japanese archipelago was not an island entity, but a peninsular extension of the Asian continent. As the last ice age waned, melting glaciers caused sea levels to rise, gradually severing the land bridges that connected Japan to the mainland. This geographical severance, occurring around 20,000 years ago, precipitated a period of profound cultural introspection and development. The inhabitants of what would become Japan were left to cultivate their own social and cultural practices, distinct from the rapidly developing cultures on the Asian continent. The Jomon period, which began around 14,000 BCE, marks one of the earliest and most enduring imprints of human activity in Japan. The name Jomon, meaning cord-marked, refers to the distinctive pottery created during this time, characterized by impressions made with twisted cords. This period saw the rise of a hunter-gatherer society, which, due to Japan's isolation, developed independently of the agricultural revolutions taking place elsewhere. The Jomon people thrived by exploiting the rich marine and forest resources, developing a deep spiritual connection with the natural world that surrounded them. As millennia passed, the Yayoi period emerged around 300 BCE, heralding significant changes brought about by limited contact with the Korean peninsula and China. The Yayoi people introduced wet rice agriculture, metalworking, and a new social hierarchy to Japan. Despite these influences, the Yayoi period did not represent a wholesale adoption of continental practices, but rather a selective integration that would characterize much of Japan's subsequent cultural evolution. The Kofun period, commencing around 250 CE, is particularly illustrative of how geographical isolation shaped Japan's cultural trajectory. The construction of massive tomb mounds known as kofun for the elite class reflects a society that was becoming increasingly stratified and complex. These monumental structures, unique to Japan, suggest a society with the resources and organizational capacity to undertake such large-scale projects, yet they also underscore a cultural idiosyncrasy fostered by centuries of isolation. The introduction of Buddhism in the mid-6th century CE is another pivotal moment in Japan's cultural evolution. While Buddhism originated in India and spread throughout Asia, in Japan, it underwent a distinctive transformation. The Japanese blended Buddhist teachings with their indigenous Shinto beliefs, creating a syncretic religious tapestry that reflected their deep-rooted animistic view of the world. This fusion of beliefs is emblematic of how Japan, while absorbing external influences, maintained a unique spiritual and cultural identity. Throughout these periods, Japan's insularity meant that while the rest of Asia experienced invasions and large-scale migrations that dramatically altered their cultural landscapes, Japan's development was largely uninterrupted by such upheavals. The result was a society that evolved at its own pace, one that could reflect on its own traditions and refine them without the pressure of external conquests or the need to defend against them. By the time the Nara period dawned in the 8th century CE, Japan had established a centralized state, influenced by Chinese models of government, yet distinctly Japanese in character. The creation of the 17-article constitution by Prince Shotoku in the early 7th century CE, while inspired by Buddhist and Confucian principles, was tailored to the Japanese ethos, emphasizing harmony and the divine nature of the Nara period which followed the Kofun era, marked the first strong emergence of a centralized and sophisticated state system in Japan. This period was characterized by the establishment of a permanent capital in Nara, modeled after the grandeur of Chang'an, the capital of Tang Dynasty China. The Japanese court eagerly absorbed Chinese art, literature, and governance, yet this was not a mere replication of foreign customs. Rather, it was a deliberate and selective incorporation that would be adapted to fit the indigenous context. The Heian period, commencing in 794 CE with the move of the capital to modern-day Kyoto, witnessed the flowering of what is often regarded as the epitome of classical Japanese culture. It was a time of artistic and intellectual efflorescence, where the courtly life was characterized by a refined aesthetic sensibility. The tale of Genji, written by Murasaki Shikibu during this era, is a testament to the sophistication of Heian society, and is often considered the world's first novel. The Heian period also saw the rise of distinct Japanese art forms, such as Yamato-e painting, and the development of Kana script, which further differentiated Japanese literature and language from Chinese influences. The geographical isolation of Japan during these periods allowed for the development of a highly stylized and ritualistic court culture. The intricate etiquette and poetic exchanges that defined Heian court life were a far cry from the more austere and pragmatic cultures developing in Europe during the same period. The Japanese elite engaged in subtle games of status and influence, where one's ability to compose an elegant poem could determine their social standing. However, the serenity of the court belied the complex power struggles that simmered beneath the surface. The Fujiwara clan, through strategic marriages and political maneuvering, came to exert considerable influence over the emperor, effectively controlling the state. This period of ostensible peace and cultural achievement was thus underpinned by a sophisticated system of political alliances and familial power dynamics, which were uniquely Japanese in their operation and nuances. As the Heian period waned, the rise of the samurai class began to reshape Japanese society. The samurai, initially provincial warriors who gained prominence and power through martial prowess, would come to play a pivotal role in Japan's history. The shift from the refined aesthetics of the court to the martial values of the samurai illustrates the dynamic nature of Japanese culture, which, while insulated from the world, was never static. The Kamakura period, starting in 1185 CE, marked the ascendancy of the samurai and the establishment of a feudal system that would dominate Japan for centuries. The Minamoto clan, after emerging victorious in the Genpei War, established a military government in Kamakura, far from the imperial court in Kyoto. This period saw the decentralization of power and the rise of regional warlords, or daimyo, who ruled over their domains with a degree of autonomy. The Mongol invasions of the 13th century were a critical test of Japan's resilience. The famed kamikaze, or divine winds, which were believed to have protected Japan from the Mongol fleets, reinforced the notion of Japan as a divinely favored land, shielded by the gods from foreign invasion. This belief bolstered the Japanese sense of unique destiny and contributed to a national identity that was deeply rooted in the divine landscape of the islands. Throughout these periods of change and upheaval, Japan's geographical isolation continued to play a central role in shaping its destiny. The archipelago's separation from the mainland allowed for a degree of internal development and consolidation that would have been difficult, if not impossible, in a more interconnected context. The seas that surrounded Japan were both a defense and a delineation, a boundary within which a rich and complex culture could flourish. In essence, Japan's geographical isolation created a context in which cultural evolution could occur with a degree of introspection and autonomy that was rare in the ancient world. The Japanese archipelago became a repository for a rich cultural heritage that was both shaped by and shielded from the outside world, allowing for a civilization to emerge that was as resilient as the rugged landscapes that nurtured it. This unique cultural evolution, a product of geographical circumstance and human ingenuity, would lay the foundations for a nation that would one day open its doors to the world. yet always on its own terms. If you want to learn more, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Until next time,